The morgue was quieter than usual tonight. Dr. Lena Rourke stood alone between metal drawers, the air so still it pressed against her chest. The fluorescent lights hummed like trapped flies, flickering in slow, irregular pulses. She logged her last autopsy for the shift, fingers trembling slightly, though she couldn't say why. The clock on the wall had stopped at 2:17 a.m. Something shifted. It was soft, the scrape of metal, the exhale of a drawer unsticking. Lena froze. The sound came from the far end of the room, from a unit that hadn't been opened all night. She waited, breath shallow, scalp prickling. No movement now, only that constant electric hum. Curiosity, pride stronger than fear. She stepped closer, latex gloves whispering as she reached for the handle. The tag on the drawer was blank. Inside, a body shrouded in linen, and behind its shoulder, tucked deep into the cold recess, a small leather-bound book. The cover was cracked, the pages stained dark around the edges. She opened it. Entries filled the pages, dated decades apart, written in different hands. Each began with the same line. "She's still whispering." Lena flipped faster. The handwriting grew frantic, darker, heavier, until it stopped. The final page was empty. Then, in the silence, the lights flickered again. A single word appeared, faint and wet, seeping through the fibers of that blank page. It spelled her name. Dr. Lena Rourke didn't believe in hauntings. She believed in evidence. Tissue samples, toxicology reports, clean incisions, and documented causes of death. Everything else was noise. Still, the book she'd found an hour ago refused to leave her mind. It sat now on her stainless steel workstation, next to a mug of cold coffee and a stack of unfinished reports. The morgue's overhead lights hummed, buzzing faintly like distant insects. Every sound seemed too loud. Even the click of her pen made her flinch. Lena rubbed the back of her neck. "It's just a diary," she murmured to herself, forcing a weak laugh. "Probably an old pathology record, notes, that's it." But when she flipped the cover again, she saw the smear of fresh ink where her name had appeared, Lena Rourke, written in the same warped handwriting that filled the other pages. She touched the line with a gloved finger. The ink smudged wet, her breath caught. The clock on the wall still read 2:17. She shut the diary and shoved it into her lab coat pocket. The cold room felt smaller now, like the air itself was listening. A knock startled her. The janitor, gray-bearded, hunched, his ID badge faded beyond reading, poked his head through the door. "You still in here, Doc?" His voice rasped, a smoker's drag. "Place gets loud after midnight." "Loud?" Lena forced a smile. "That's not how I'd describe it." He didn't smile back. His eyes flicked to the workstation, to the shape of the diary under her coat. "Sometimes they talk," he said quietly. "When it's that hour." Lena blinked. "Excuse me?" He shook his head as if he'd said too much. "You found it, didn't you?" "The diary?" A pause. Then almost a whisper. "They only whisper when you read it aloud." He turned and walked away before she could ask what that meant. The automatic lights dimmed behind him, one by one, as if retreating with him down the corridor. Lena exhaled, chest tight. She wanted to laugh it off, but the morgue had changed. Shadows leaned too far across the floor. The stainless surfaces no longer reflected clean lines, but distorted, watery shapes. Her reflection blinked half a beat slower than her. She stripped off her gloves and went to the locker room. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling as she changed into her coat. On the bench, her phone buzzed, a message from the hospital administrator, reminding her to submit post-mortem notes by morning, routine, grounding, normal. She clung to that word, normal, like a lifeline. As she passed the storage hallway, the motion sensor lights refused to come on. The silence there was absolute. No hum, no sound of refrigeration, just a pressure thick and cold like being watched from behind the sealed drawers. "Don't be ridiculous," she muttered. "You're overtired." Still, she walked faster. Outside, the night felt fresher but heavier. The parking lot was empty except for her old sedan under a flickering light. She looked back once before unlocking the door. The morgue's windows reflected only black. No sign of the janitor, no movement. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was standing just beyond that glass, watching her leave. Her apartment was small, functional, and silent. Books stacked against one wall, medical journals open on the counter. The kind of place where nothing happened ever. That's why she liked it. She placed the diary on the kitchen table, trying not to look at it. She told herself she'd throw it away in the morning. But when she sat on the couch, her eyes kept drifting back toward that table, to that one faint line of her name burned into the paper like a bruise. She couldn't stop wondering why her fatigue took her in waves. The digital clock on her microwave blinked 3:12 a.m. She rose to turn off the lights, but froze halfway. The diary was open. She hadn't opened it. It lay flat, face down against the table, pages trembling slightly as if moved by breath. The refrigerator clicked off, plunging the apartment into deeper quiet. Lena stepped closer. Her pulse thudded painfully in her ears. A new entry had appeared. Same ink. Same slanted hand. But this time the handwriting was neater, more deliberate. She took me home. Lena backed away. Her throat tightened. She couldn't even form a word. The room felt wrong, tilted, like the air had shifted weight. Her phone vibrated again, startling her. A new text from an unknown number. 17. Don't read it aloud. She stared at the screen until it dimmed, the reflection of her own wide eyes flickering back. For a moment, she thought she saw something else there too. A shadow standing just behind her shoulder. The diary's pages rustled once, then went still. And somewhere in the city, a clock began ticking again. The next morning brought no comfort. Dr. Lena Rourke woke on the couch, the diary resting open on her lap as if she'd fallen asleep mid-sentence, but she remembered locking it in the kitchen drawer before lying down. The morning light, cold and sterile, made the apartment feel less like home and more like an exhibit. Still, lifeless, staged. Her reflection in the window looked washed out, unfamiliar. She caught herself whispering, "You're fine," but even her own voice sounded distant, echoing faintly like someone else's repetition. She dressed automatically, her mind replaying the message from the night before. 2:17. Don't read it aloud. At the morgue. The day shift buzzed with routine, a thin false normalcy. Technicians moved between rooms, discussing reports. The radio played soft, classical static. No one noticed Lena's stiff posture, her distracted eyes. When she reached her office, she hesitated before placing her bag down. Someone had moved her chair. Her pens were aligned differently, and sitting neatly on her desk, the diary. She hadn't brought it with her. Lena's stomach turned. She looked around. "Who put this here?" She called, no answer. The buzz of the fluorescent lights filled the silence. She took a slow step back. The air smelled faintly of formaldehyde and something older, like burnt paper. Dr. Patel, the assistant coroner, appeared in the doorway. "Everything all right?" His tone was casual, but his eyes darted briefly to the book. "Did you—" She started, then stopped. "Did anyone touch my desk this morning?" He frowned. "Not that I know of. You're pale, Lena. Maybe take a day off." She forced a nod, though her heart hammered. When Patel left, she picked up the diary. It was heavier than before, swollen as if something pulsed beneath the cover. She opened it, bracing herself. Inside, new pages had filled overnight. Names she didn't recognize, descriptions of autopsies that never happened. Each entry was dated 2:17 a.m., and at the bottom of every page, she's still whispering. Her hand shook. She flipped faster, searching for her own name. It wasn't there now. Instead, a final note, just 5 words in precise block letters. "You brought her back, Lena." That night, she couldn't bring herself to go home. She stayed in the pathology lab long after everyone left, moving between drawers as if checking that the bodies were still where they should be. She tried to focus on her report, but her thoughts kept fracturing. Voices, just faint, like someone humming under their breath. She turned off the radio, but the sound continued, echoing through the cold storage units. She walked slowly toward the sound. It came from drawer 19, the same one where she'd found the diary. "All right," she whispered. "Let's end this." Her gloved fingers pulled the handle. The drawer slid open with a sigh. The slab was empty, only a deep impression on the sheet, as if something had lain there a long time and recently left. Lena stepped back, her spine crawling. The humming stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. The next day, she started asking questions. The morgue's records room smelled of dust and old paper. Lena combed through archived death logs, searching for any mention of the diary. Decades of handwritten notes, interns, autopsy reports, witness accounts. Nothing. Until one thin folder caught her eye. Renovation 1973, South Wing. Inside were photographs, the morgue during construction, concrete walls half finished, a door bricked over at the end of the hallway that didn't exist anymore. And on the back of one photo, scrawled handwriting she recognized instantly. "Do not open," she still whispers. The handwriting matched the diary's earliest entries. She nearly dropped the photo. Her pulse quickened as she noticed something else in the image. A man in a lab coat standing half in frame. His name tag, Dr. Elias Ward. Ward's name appeared repeatedly through the old death logs. Chief pathologist, 1970-1974. Cause of death, suicide. Self-inflicted incision, morgue premises. Lena found his obituary. The body had been cremated, but the log showed one irregularity. Personal effects, one notebook, lost in storage. Her throat went dry. The diary hadn't been hidden accidentally, it had been buried. That evening, she drove to the address listed in the renovation file. The old caretaker's house on the edge of the property stood crooked beneath dead trees. A single light burned inside. The door creaked open before she knocked. An old man peered out, the same janitor from the morgue, but now in worn pajamas, eyes rimmed red with exhaustion. "I knew you'd come," he rasped. "They always do." "Who's they?" Lena asked, her voice trembling despite herself. He gestured her inside. The house smelled of dust and disinfectant. On the table lay newspaper clippings, all with the same headline: "Pathologist found dead at work." Some were dated 50 years apart. He poured tea with shaking hands. "That diary don't belong to the dead, doctor. It belongs to whoever reads it." Lena stared. "It's connected to Elias Ward, isn't it?" The old man nodded slowly. Ward found the first voice. Said it came from the slab itself. Wrote it down so he wouldn't forget. But writing her name, that's how she remembers you. Her name? He looked up sharply. "You've seen it?" Lena hesitated. "No, only the phrase." She's still whispering. "Then stop reading before you do." His hand trembled as he pointed toward her coat. "It feeds on attention. Every word you read, she gets closer." Lena swallowed. "What happens when the last page fills?" The old man's eyes glistened. "Then she writes you back." The drive home was wordless, her mind a blur of disbelief and dread. The city lights streaked across the windshield like veins of dying stars. She parked in silence and sat motionless for several minutes. The diary lay on the passenger seat where she swore she hadn't placed it. When she lifted the cover, something was different. The ink wasn't black anymore. It shimmered dark red, wet and alive. The words bled across the page. She heard him again, then beneath it, smaller. 217. Open the drawer. Lena's breath came shallow. She slammed the book shut and threw it onto the dashboard. But the car engine sputtered, headlights flickering in sync with her racing pulse. She whispered, "You're hallucinating." Lena, lack of sleep, but the rearview mirror disagreed. Behind her, in the back seat, a faint reflection, pale skin, sunken eyes, lips barely moving, mouthing something soundless. She didn't look back. At the morgue the following day, she found Dr. Patel waiting. "Lena, about last night, did you come back here?" he asked, frowning. "No, why?" He turned his tablet toward her. Security footage from 2:17 a.m. Lena entering the morgue, barefoot, carrying the diary. Opening drawer, 19, smiling faintly, she felt her stomach drop. "That's not possible." "I was home." Patel looked uneasy. "You should talk to someone. You're not well." But as she stared at the screen, she realized something worse. The woman in the video wasn't smiling, she was whispering to someone inside the open drawer. The audio, though faint, caught one clear fragment. "I can hear you now." Lena stumbled back from the monitor, heart slamming against her ribs. She had to know the truth, what the diary wanted, what she was. That night she prepared, locked the morgue doors, turned off the cameras, and laid the diary on the same cold table where it all began. She flipped to the last page, still blank. A whisper slipped through the air, soft, feminine, familiar, her own voice, "Write my name." Her hand trembled over the pen. The lights flickered once, then, from every drawer in the room, came a synchronized sound. a slow, dragging inhale, as if the entire morgue had begun to breathe. And from deep within one of the sealed units, a knock, once, twice, then silence. Lena's pen touched the page, L. The morgue door sealed shut behind her with a hiss of vacuumed air. Lena had disabled the security system herself. No cameras, no lights beyond the emergency strip that cast the room in sickly orange. Every breath fogged in front of her like a ghost unsure of its own form. The diary lay open on the autopsy table, pages fluttering despite the still air, L. Her incomplete name stared up from the page, a wound waiting to close. She could still hear the knock. It hadn't stopped. Not really, it had simply moved inside her head, a steady, wet rhythm that matched her pulse. "This ends tonight," she whispered. Her voice sounded small in the vast, tiled room. She pulled the microphone recorder toward her, a forensic habit, and clicked it on. "Dr. Lena Rourke, forensic pathology log, timestamp." She checked her watch. 2:17 a.m. Her voice shook. "Commencing investigation into anomalous object." The diary's pages rippled like something exhaling. A low hum bled from the refrigeration units. The drawers rattled softly, metal against metal, as if restless things pressed from the inside. The sound grew rhythmic, not random, synchronized. A heartbeat multiplied. Lena steadied her hands, scalpel glinting in her grip. "You're not real. You're a projection, manifestation of exhaustion." Her words felt borrowed, clinical. She didn't believe them anymore. She opened the diary to the newest entry. The ink glistened, still wet. She says she's almost done writing. Beneath it, new lines etched themselves, letter by letter, the motion so slow it was unbearable to watch. "Turn around, Lena." She froze, every hair on her arms lifted. The refrigeration fans died. The hum vanished. The silence was not absence. It was presence. Heavy, breathing, aware. Lena forced herself to turn. Every drawer stood open. All of them. Dozens of white sheets, rising slightly as though lifted by invisible chests. The room swam in stillness. She staggered back against the table. "Stop this," she whispered. I'm not part of your story." From somewhere behind her, a voice answered. Quiet, hoarse, childlike. "You already were." Lena spun, scalpel raised. The air rippled near the far wall, bending light like heat haze. Then a figure, a woman draped in a burial sheet, face indistinct, eyes empty sockets that wept thin trails of ink. "You found my words," the thing said, voice threading through Lena's skull. "Now you'll finish them. Who are you?" Lena's voice cracked. "What are you?" The figure stepped closer. Every movement came with the sound of turning pages. "I was written, then forgotten." He stopped before the last word. "You'll finish it for him, Elias Ward," Lena whispered. The creature tilted its head, the sound like paper tearing. "He thought he could bury me beneath flesh and tile. But every hand that writes becomes mine." Lena backed against the wall. "You're a story. That's all. A name on paper." The woman smiled, or something like it. "And so are you." The lights exploded. Glass showered across the floor. The emergency strip flickered, drowning the room in strobing orange and black. Bodies shifted. Every cadaver in the open drawers sat upright, heads bowed, hands limp over the edges. A room of silent witnesses. Lena screamed, the sound swallowed by the hum returning to life. Deeper, slower, breathing. The diary's pages flared open, letters bleeding faster than her eyes could track. She's still whispering. She's writing again. She won't stop until the last name is written. Lena's voice broke. "I won't write it." The figure stood inches from her now. Its presence was suffocating, cold enough to burn. The sheet slipped from its shoulders. Beneath the face was hers, same eyes, same mouth, same trembling jawline. The double's lips moved soundlessly. Then in a single sharp whisper, "Then I'll write you." Her body convulsed as the diary snapped shut on its own. The lights went out entirely, darkness, total, then a scratching sound. Not from the drawers, from inside her head, like ink dragging through paper. She screamed, clawing at her temples. "Get out! Get out!" Her voice echoed. But now there was another one, her own, delayed by a heartbeat. "You can't stop a record," it whispered. "Only complete it." The darkness bloomed with images, faces, rooms, decades collapsing into one another. She saw Ward carving words into his own arm, screaming for silence. She saw corpses whispering from beneath shrouds. She saw herself writing, again and again, pages that filled with the same phrase until her handwriting no longer looked human. The morgue doors slammed open, wind tearing through. Papers scattered like wings. The figure lunged. No weight, no mass, just absence given form. It passed through her. Lena dropped to her knees. The diary lay before her, open again, pen waiting beside it. Her hands moved without command. She wrote. The words poured from her like blood from an opened vein. I found a hidden diary in the morgue. The last page was blank. Her tears smudged the ink. The whisper inside her spoke sweetly now. Just one more sentence. Her hand trembled. It's not blank anymore. The diary snapped shut with a violent clap. The sound ricocheted off tile, metallic and final. The morgue fell silent. Every drawer closed in unison. The lights steadied. Lena stood slowly, drenched in cold sweat. Her reflection on the polished metal door looked normal again. She exhaled, shaking, half laughing. It's done, she whispered. It's... Her reflection blinked, but she hadn't. The smile that spread across its lips wasn't hers. It was too wide, too knowing. And then, without a sound, her reflection lifted a hand and pressed it against the metal, leaving behind a black, dripping smear of ink. Lena stumbled backward. The diary lay on the floor where she'd dropped it. She picked it up with shaking hands. The last page was filled. Her handwriting, but not hers, covered it. The entry read, she's still whispering. Dr. Lena Rourke, completed. Her lungs tightened. The air grew heavy again. The lights dimmed to a pulse. On the slab behind her, one of the drawers slid open with a slow, shuddering breath. Inside, a body, perfectly preserved. Her own. The recorder on the table crackled to life, playing back her voice. Timestamp, 2:17 a.m. Commencing investigation into anomalous object, then static. Then faintly, her voice again, layered, distant, wrong. She's still whispering. The lights went out. The morgue had been closed for 3 weeks. The corridors smelled of bleach and silence. Everything felt newly polished, but under the gloss lay something wrong, like rot beneath paint. The investigation report had concluded equipment malfunction, operator disorientation, and probable psychotic episode. Dr. Lena Rourke's body had never been found. The hospital wanted to move on quickly. The night shift resumed under a new hire, Dr. Emily Carter, 29, quiet, eager to prove herself. She'd heard whispers, of course, rumors about what had happened, the missing footage, the sealed autopsy drawers. But she told herself it was gossip. Hospitals lived on gossip. Still, she noticed how everyone avoided the South Wing. That was where they'd found the diary. Her first week passed uneventfully. Reports, cold cases, quiet nights. She liked the solitude. It gave her time to think, to breathe in a world that often didn't. But the morgue had a presence that wasn't solitude. It was attention. She felt it most around 2 a.m., when the ventilation quieted and the hum flattened into silence. That was when the shadows looked less like absence and more like posture, as if they were listening. On her 7th night, she stayed late to finish documentation. The new renovation team had repaired the lights, but the flicker over drawer 19 persisted, like a heartbeat behind glass. Emily made a note to report it. Then she saw the box, a small cardboard crate labeled Recovered Effects, Case 2047R. Inside, sealed in a plastic bag, was the diary. She frowned. Is this the thing everyone kept talking about? No one answered, of course. Her gloved hands trembled slightly as she lifted it free. The leather cover was cold, the edges burned with dark stains that might once have been ink or blood. She turned it over. On the back, a hospital inventory tag. Evidence returned, property of Dr. L. Rourke. Emily hesitated. She knew she should log it and store it properly. But curiosity has its own gravity. She carried it to the autopsy table. Her reflection wavered in the steel surface. She opened the diary slowly. The pages were filled with neat handwriting. The first line read, "She's still whispering." Emily frowned. Weird. The entries were dated decades apart, names she didn't know. Phrases repeating, "She hears me." She writes herself again. Don't read it aloud. The last entry ended abruptly. Dr. Lena Rourke, completed. Emily's chest tightened. The ink looked fresh. She ran a finger lightly across the line. It smudged, Wet. Something fluttered behind her. A light pop. Then a faint exhale of air as one of the drawers shifted open a few centimeters. She froze. It was drawer 19. A single tag hung from its handle, the name scribbled faintly. Rourke. Okay, she whispered, forcing a laugh. Very funny, whoever set this up. The lights above her flickered once, twice, then steadied. She turned back to the diary. A new line had appeared below the last. Welcome, Emily. Her stomach dropped. The pen on her desk rolled off, clattering to the floor. The sound was too loud in the silence that followed. She whispered, No. The drawer behind her clicked open another inch. Later, when the maintenance crew found her workstation, the diary lay closed again, clean and dry. The logbook showed no anomalies. Security footage from that hour had corrupted, all but one frame. It showed Emily standing before the autopsy table, head tilted slightly downward, holding the diary open in both hands. The timestamp, 2:17 a.m. The faint reflection of a second figure stood behind her, identical in height and build. The hospital sealed the room permanently after that. Years passed. The South Wing became a storage area, then an archive. The city changed. New staff came and old stories faded. The morgue's lights burned out one by one until only the emergency strip glowed faintly along the floor. The diary waited. Dust gathered but never stayed. The pages did not yellow. Sometimes the ventilation would whisper through, stirring it just enough to open at the middle. The ink gleaming wet as if written moments ago. Every few years, someone rediscovered it. They always said the same thing first. It's blank. Then the clock would stop at 2:17. In the end, it was just a story again. A rumor among interns, a ghost tale told between shifts. A diary that wrote back. A doctor who disappeared. A name that shouldn't have been remembered. But if you ever find yourself alone in a morgue, the lights too bright, the air too still, listen carefully. You might hear a faint scratching like pen against paper, and if you find a small, cracked diary lying where it shouldn't be, don't open it. Don't even touch it, because when you do, the last page will be waiting. Blank. Waiting for your name.